Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Thursday, the 10th of July, 2025. This is the weekly summary. Today is day 643 since October 7th, 2023. Has there been progress on a ceasefire deal? I'm not sure if you'd call it progress, but maybe, and we can hope to that end. We will not give up hope. These updates are from this morning. Just as the Qatar talks ended. It was reported on Monday that the first round of indirect Israel-Hamas talks that were mediated by Qatar, they ended inconclusively. That was the same day President Trump met with Prime Minister Netanyahu. He said that both Hamas and Israel want to have a ceasefire. So that was on Monday. There was a headline from Al Jazeera yesterday that read that Hamas has agreed to release 10 captives as Israeli attacks have killed 74 people in Gaza over the last 24 hours. Hamas says the ongoing talks remain tough as Trump sees a good chance of reaching a ceasefire deal within days. But as of, I haven't seen any alerts come through. We haven't heard news. One report said that there was only one issue left. I'm not aware of if that is the issue. Hamas has said they will not sign a ceasefire agreement if Israel will not agree to ending the war. Netanyahu has said that they want to maintain the right to go back after 60 days. But there was a report from a White House official that communicated to Israelis that the U.S. will not let Israel resume the Gaza war. So we'll continue to hold on to hope that peace might come quickly. I was asked last week the question of how many Hamas fighters have been killed since October 7th. I cited a number that I had heard that prior to October 2023, there were 25 to 30,000 militants in Hamas. That number, and it's only the number of fighters. It does not include civil servants, teachers, others who worked for the political side. Governing Gaza. A little was reported about Netanyahu's White House dinner on Monday, at least in terms of the details of that conversation. Then there was a second meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu on Tuesday. So they met 2 times in the first 2 days of this week. Special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, suggested that Israel and Hamas were down to one issue, as I mentioned previously. Netanyahu also conditioned an end to the war on the implementation of Trump's controversial plan to take over Gaza and to encourage the mass migration of Palestinians. So we began hearing about this earlier this week, that there's an Israeli plan for what's being called a humanitarian tent city in Gaza. Israeli Defense Minister Katz on Monday told journalists that he had instructed the Israeli military to prepare a plan to confine all Palestinians in Gaza to a humanitarian city on the ruins of Rafah. That was according to an Israeli media report. Palestinians would not be allowed to leave the zone. It would be managed by international bodies, and it would be secured by the Israeli Defense Forces. That was according to Defense Minister Katz in Israel. Now, the Israeli human rights lawyer, Michael Svard, condemned Katz's plan. He said it was nothing less than an operational plan for a crime against humanity. The United States and Israel, it was reported this week, are working to find countries that would give Palestinians, quote, a better future, end quote. Netanyahu told reporters yesterday, stating that if people want to stay, they can stay. But if they want to leave, that they should be able to leave. You'll recall that there was a department established in the Israeli military to help facilitate that transition process in the Israeli government, not the military. Separately, the Israeli leader suggested that a Palestinian state would be a platform to destroy Israel. Trump has spoken about the plan to relocate Palestinians out of Gaza. After it was introduced in February, it sparked widespread pushback from the international community. But Netanyahu and Israeli leaders have embraced this idea of voluntary migration. Critics have said that this is a euphemism for ethnic cleansing in Gaza, given that it was reportedly told to lawmakers that Israel is working to destroy every building in the strip so that Palestinians would have nowhere to go after the war. And the only option would be to leave the enclave. The Gaza deal under discussion would see the release of 10 living hostages, the remaining of 18 more. There would be 5 different groups throughout the 60 days of a ceasefire agreement. So it would be a 2-month truce if it moves forward. This would be in exchange for a yet to be agreed upon number of Palestinian prisoners. Many of them have been accused and are serving life sentences. Several thousand are Palestinians who have been arrested in Gaza after October 7th. Israeli Hamas negotiating teams have been holding proximity talks in Doha since Sunday, but they've yet to discuss the identities of those to be released as a part of the deal. Hamas is insisting that other issues have to move forward first. A new report was just released this week by the DINA Project, which is an Israeli team of legal and gender experts, saying that Hamas used sexual violence as a tactical weapon of war. Based on survivor and witness testimonies, accounts from first responders, forensic, visual, audio evidence, the report says that 15 former hostages either experienced or witnessed some form of sexual violence. Most victims were permanently silenced, is a direct quote from the report, creating uniquely evidentiary challenges. Hamas has previously denied that its forces committed sexual violence. The DINA Project is based out of the United States, specifically in New York City. It was founded by women who are passionate about promoting gender equality and social justice, focusing on empowering women and fostering dialogue, often within Jewish and broader communities. The Google co-founder, Sergey Brin, described the UN as transparently anti-Semitic in an internal forum for Google DeepMind employees on Saturday, according to screenshots and forum members. Brin's comments came in response to a UN report that was released last month that concluded that technology firms, including Google and its parent company Alphabet, had profited from the genocide carried out in Israel. That's a direct quote. In Gaza by providing cloud and AI technologies. Hundreds have been killed in Gaza this last week. Yesterday, Wednesday, the reported number was 74 people killed. Tuesday, 18. The Israeli military said that a militant explosive attack killed 5 Israeli soldiers and wounded 14 additional others. On Monday, at least 38 people were killed in Gaza. The IDF said that attack on the popular Al-Baqa cafe in Gaza City last Monday killed the commander of Hamas naval force. The IDF also said it has taken the steps to mitigate the risk of harming civilians in the strike, which local medics say killed 40 people. On Saturday, it was reported that 70 Palestinians were killed, 332 were wounded, which at that time brought the reported death toll to 57,338. The U.S. and Israel-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation on Saturday blamed Hamas for injuring 2 of its workers at the center in Khan Yunis, and the Hamas government media office rejected the accusations that the group was involved in the attack. Over the weekend, it was reported by Sky News that they have an analysis that shows that deaths in Gaza are increasing when there are aid distributions by controversial U.S. and the Israeli-backed group, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. The repeated killings of Palestinians at those location food distribution sites are an outcome of the aid project's failed design and departures from long-established norms for the aid distribution in the territory, according to humanitarian experts. But the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation rejected that criticism. The UN has recorded 613 killings of Palestinians seeking Gaza Humanitarian Foundation distribution points and near humanitarian convoys as of June 27th, with further incidents since. A spokesperson from the UN said on Friday. 509 of those 613 were locations that were near Gaza Humanitarian Foundation sites. The GHF, that foundation, submitted a plan, a proposal bearing its name that was seen by Reuters, which describes a plan to build large-scale camps inside and possibly outside of Gaza to house the Palestinian population. It's unknown if this is the same plan that Katz was talking about earlier in the week. The idea is the plan to replace Hamas's control. According to sources, the plan to create such humanitarian transit areas was submitted to the Trump administration and was recently discussed at the White House. The GHF declined that it had been submitted or involved in the proposal and said it's not planning on implementing humanitarian transit areas. I was asked to talk last week about how many Hamas fighters have been eliminated. Essentially, the IDF reported officially the number of 17,000. This report was as of September of 2024. So that's the numbers that I could find. 17,000 was reported in September 2024. But some analysts have said they think the closer number, the number that is closer to being accurate is 8,500. They used initial or specific IDF reports to count the total number of Hamas leadership fatality. Those would be Hamas's military wing, the Isl ad-Din al-Qassam brigades. U.S. aid officials last month raised critical concerns about the U.S. and Israel-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation and its ability to be able to deliver aid to Palestinians. That was at the same time the State Department announced the $30 million funding grant for the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. By Monday, BBC reported Hamas had lost about 80% of its control over Gaza, with armed clans filling the void, according to security officials. Most of the leadership, or about 95%, are dead, and there's no control anywhere, that particular official said. What is life like in Gaza today? There was a report about life-saving generators that were sputtering to a halt as fuel has been blocked from entering Gaza for 5 months. Strikes on people sheltering in schools and tents, those seeking food, water, the assistance continue to be reported, resulting in mass casualties. Hospitals face imminent shutdown as fuel is running out. There's a total ban on fuel that's been in existence for 130 days. 1 in 3 people are going entire days without eating. More people are at the risk of starvation. This is by a new assessment. First responders, health workers, aid workers continue to deliver food and other assistance under intolerable conditions. They're facing hunger, water scarcity, and threats to their personal safety, just like everyone else in Gaza. Older persons face extreme risks amid these hostilities, often left without protection, essential support, or access to necessities for survival. Water scarcity is deepening because of the lack of fuel, spare parts for repairs, ongoing insecurity, and the inaccessibility of most water and sanitation hostilities. In the occupied West Bank, 5 months after the start of the Israeli military operation, the humanitarian needs have escalated in the West Bank. There's more than 40,000 people who continue to be displaced. This is primarily from Jenin and the north of Gaza. These individuals, many have been cut off from their homes and are left with very limited access to basic services. The healthcare 5 months after the launch of Iron Wall is where things stand today. Hundreds of residents of the Palestinian village of Mu'arat near Jericho were forcibly displaced this last Friday. This was one of the West Bank's largest expulsions since the Gaza war began. Locals said that years of settler harassment, violence, and theft culminated on Thursday night when settlers vandalized a home, stole 60 sheep, prompting the community's decision to leave. 2 German reporters were attacked by Israeli settlers this past week in the Palestinian village of Sinjil. They were connected to Germany's international broadcasters, the Deutsche Welle reporters in the West Bank. The pair were in the village of Sinjil, which is north of Ramallah, to report on a planned protest against violence by radical settlers. They were able to escape unharmed, but their cameraman's car was badly damaged. I hope that I put in the notes later on to talk to you about the Christian village of Taipei. Churches for Middle East Peace put out a statement about that village today and some of the settler attacks, or at least this week, the attacks that have been happening there. In Israel on Monday, when Netanyahu was in the U.S., he said that both countries were working to find countries that would give the Palestinians a better future. I talked about that already. Over the weekend, Israel's finance minister Smotrich slammed a decision by the Security Cabinet to approve a plan to allow international organizations to distribute more aid in the north of Gaza. He essentially said that they were feeding the enemy and that it was a grave mistake. Iran has said that they do not plan to further retaliate against the United States, but they have no plans to stop uranium enrichment. And in an interview released yesterday, the Iranian president, Pezeshkian, stated that he believes the U.S. and Iran can resolve their differences through dialogue and talks, but trust is a potential issue, questioning whether or not Iran can be sure that the U.S. would not give Israel permission to attack them again. Pezeshkian also claimed that Israel tried to assassinate him. Netanyahu's top advisor, Ron Dermer, told Israeli officials he thinks Trump could greenlight renewed Israeli attacks on Iran if Tehran tries to revive its nuclear program. Dermer, the senior advisor, met with Vice President Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and White House envoy Steve Witkoff during his time in D.C. The U.S. has scheduled talks with Iran, Trump reported this week, adding that they want to talk. Witkoff said that the meetings will likely take place next week. And Friday reports indicated that the International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors safely departed Iran. That was days after Tehran enacted a law suspending cooperation with the agency. Trump discussed the situation with Iran and other regional issues with the Saudi Defense Minister, Prince Khalid bin Salman, during a Thursday meeting that was at the White House. And European officials say they believe that the U.S. and Israel attacks on Iran actually created new incentives for Tehran to pursue nuclear weapons in secret. The strikes have hardened the mood in Tehran. Regarding Yemen, there were attacks on ships just off of the Yemen coastline. A ship was reportedly attacked. This one was not off the coastline. This one was attacked in the Red Sea. It was identified as a merchant vessel on Sunday. The British Maritime Agency and security firm Ambry said the attack was by 8 skiffs while translating northbound in the sea. Ambry later claimed that the bomb-carrying drone boats were also involved in the attack. 2 struck the ship, while 2 more were destroyed by armed guards on board. On Monday, the Israeli military launched airstrikes targeting ports and facilities held by Yemen's Houthi rebels. This was the first time in nearly a month that Israel attacked Yemen. On Monday, Houthi rebels also claimed that Sunday attack that sank the Liberian-flagged Greek-owned bulk carrier, they launched a new attack on a separate Liberian-flagged cargo ship. As of the latest reports I had when I wrote this, is that the vessel was actually under continuous attack. 3 mariners were killed and 2 others were on Tuesday during that attack on the Liberian-flagged cargo ship. Regarding Syria, Hayat Tahrir al-Shams, I haven't used that name in a long time. It was the terrorist group that the acting president of Syria led prior to transitioning into the official leadership of the state. President Trump removed that group, Hayat Tahrir al-Shams, from the U.S. terrorist designation this past Monday on the 7th. One part of that destination is the attempt to bring Syria into the Abraham Accords process. Another is the continuing U.S. withdrawal from the northeast of Syria, the SDF bases. But the main thrust is an attempt to stabilize Syria by allowing financial transfers, including the repatriation of money from Syrian refugees, which facilitates the return of refugees themselves. And many who've been displaced from Syria have been returning. And foreign Gulf investments, the aim is that the Gulf states will work to help and assist in the reconstruction of the Syrian state. In Lebanon, over the weekend, Israeli drones struck 3 different locations in villages in South Lebanon. The IDF said that they killed a member of Hezbollah's elite Radwan force in a drone attack. And Hezbollah said that they would not lay down their weapons until Israel withdraws from the south of Lebanon and stops its airstrikes. That was from the group's leader, Naim Qassam, in a video he did this week. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and this is in terms of shifting things to the U.S., imposed sanctions against a UN human rights official, Francesca Albanese, after she criticized Israel's actions in Gaza. Last week, she had called upon the ICC using a report titled From Economy of Occupation to Economy of Genocide. She identified 48 corporate actors who were accused of transactional relationships and profiting through cooperation with the Israeli government. This week, we announced the locations of our CMEP Piece by Piece, Peace PEAC, and Peace PIECE. The Pilgrimage to Peace Tour cities were announced this week. We're excited because we're partnering with the Bethlehem Fair Trade Organization for that upcoming fall speaking tour. Let us know and be sure to reach out if you're interested in hosting. And July 9th, CMEP condemned the Israeli settler attacks against the Palestinian village of Taibeh. That attack was on July 7th. Settlers set fire to the town cemetery and church. This act of violence represents an assault not only on the historically Christian town, but on the sustainability of the Christian presence in the Holy Land. So that's the update of this past week. Blessings to you wherever you may be. May God go before us.